Hello and welcome to documentation number 18. I'm about to tell you something which is close to an adventure, and to me it's a miracle. Maybe some of you know the Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and there's a tree, the white tree in Minas Tirith, which is supposed to be dead, but it isn't. There's still flowers. And this is the same with me. As I've stated a number of times, I've been unable to play the piano for 53 years now. And well, 53 years ago, something happened which prevented me from playing the piano and even from exploring what kind of abilities I have. And what is happening now is something that is, let's say, totally beyond my control. So I cannot decide how this development takes place, but I can watch and listen. There's no recipe for this kind of approach to piano playing. Apart from, I can say that in my daily life, I emotionally pass through the reminiscences of the nightmares that 50 years ago plus created this blockage. So what's happening is not that I'm getting better to play the piano as I sit at the piano. And as I've stated also a number of times, I'm not able to practice because what I practice disappears overnight. What is happening is an increase in level of capacity as such. And with this increase of capacity, I'm able to, I discover from 1 week to another that I can play with larger and more controlled sound. My fingers are moving in a different way. And this is a process which is completely opposite to the, I wouldn't say normal, but the extreme version of how to become a pianist is demonstrated in the autobiography of the wonderful American pianist Ruth Slenczewska. Her father forced her to practice 9 hours a day from the age of 4. When she played wrong notes, he slapped her in the face, and if there's with her the slightest sign of rebellion, she was denied meals. So she had a talent, of course, and was able to play, and has made a number of wonderful recordings, but had a period where she had to cut off her contact with music. I have never had a period where I've been cut off from music, but from the piano. And this time I will play maybe even shorter examples of the compositions that I always play, and I use these compositions as test pieces to see the difference. And if you listen to documentation number 17, you will already from the beginning be able to hear a total difference. We have done a lot of effort here to get the best possible light and the best possible sound. And of course, one day a studio and a Steinway grant will do some difference. But already now, and with this Herman N. Peterson piano, there's quite a lot to say and a lot of nuance possibilities. I will begin with playing the piece that I normally end with, the Grieg's Wedding on Trollhaugen. And I promised some documentations ago that I wouldn't say this, but I have to say it again, that there will be wrong notes. Maybe some of you have seen the incredible film called There Will Be Blood. Also, if you see films by what's his name, the Hateful Eight, Tarantino, of course. The word was just there was a interview with Kurt Russell concerning the Eightful Head, and he said, you know, Hateful Eight, you know, this is Tarantino, so there will be blood. So there will not be blood here, but there will be mistakes. But they are really, really not important. It's the sound that moves my fingers. And these mistakes are fewer and fewer, and they will disappear eventually. But try, if you do remember anything about the last time or one of the times I've played this wedding on Trollhaugen, that this is now again a different, there's much more variety in the expression, and the sound is different. So what I'm doing now is only to concentrate about the sound. one too many in the end, but never mind. When I listen to the sound and only concentrate about the sound, something strange happens which surprises me. I had not expected that. It is as if the sound is revealing some kind of formula inside the notes, inside the music, and now I'm being quite audacious, telling how the music wants to be played. This opens for enormous discussion. We are, of course, playing what we ourselves feel, but a lot of discussion also goes in the direction of wanting to play this somehow as the composer has meant it. And even when you hear composers play their own music, it's not always as you would say, well, this is it. It can be done differently. But gradually, when I'm getting better to hit the sound and hear the sound and express the sounds, it's more precise, the difference of interpretation from century to century and from composer to composer. I'll try if I can illustrate different kinds of sound with small examples. I've played a number of times Schumann Waldscenen, and the melody sound here has some kind of golden, friendly, embracing character, as if we are invited into a wonderful experience of some kind. Like, come and I will show you something which you will do you really, really good. So try to notice the sound of the melody tone, which will be different in the next example. didn't sound quite as I intended, but it was close. The beginning of Schubert's A major sonata, the tone, as I hear it, and I'm quite sure you can hear there is a difference in sound. The tone is, well, it sounds almost banal to say it's more to singing or closer to telling a story where the melody in itself is a story, where the melody with Schumann is more like an atmosphere. So let's see what happens here. I will stop here. It's just for the example. And a couple of days ago, where I began to play this Mozart G major sonata I normally play, I discovered that I was suddenly had moved 1 century back in time. Like telling a story which is with a melody which is flowering and pastel-like, the way I hear it. I can give you another 100 years back example. The French Suite Number 1 in D minor. When I try to listen to what kind of sound and what kind of tempo does this composition want, and I let the sound decide the tempo. The first movement sounds something like this, and the sound is more compact in a way. The interesting thing is that the second movement, it's tempting to play these two movements in almost the same tempo, but the first one sets Allemande, that's a German, in the German way, courant, that's running, that's a bit faster, and excuse me, and in this movement the sound is different. It's not as compact, and I'm trying to be totally objective when I say this is not something I decide, it's the music that decides this. The right notes will, as I said, eventually be there. Another sound example where the sound is directing my ability to play. Maybe you can see now, if you compare, that I'm sitting at the piano in a different way. I'm getting closer and closer to, shall we say, look like a pianist, and not look like somebody who tries to play the piano. In this documentation I've only one of those before and after examples, but the Chopin study Etude Opus 10 number 1, when I played that the last time, I played a few examples, and the best of these sounded like this. Anybody? be able to hear, I'm quite sure, that I play it with more ease. I may play it a couple of times because there's still a lot of notes missing, but the sound is different, and it's easier for me to play it because I have more control over each finger, as if the sound is coming out of the earth. Imagine you're watching a piece of garden, and then you photograph it in this way, which I've seen a lot of times, with 10 minutes intervals, and after a few days you can just make a film where the flowers bloom. So it's as if the music is coming closer and closer to me as I am being in tighter and tighter connection with my hands. So now it's one of these situations where I will try to tell myself that I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm reporting a phenomenon which to me is as new and as fascinating and strange as it might be. I don't still play the entire study, but that will come. Let's try it again. Getting a bit tired in my right hand, because when the sound is not completely under control, I'm using enormous power of the muscles. So I can play it a couple of times and then I have to rest a bit. Last time I tried to illustrate some power of fortissimo sound, and I'll try to do this again. That was in Schumann's Carnival, Opus 9, just the beginning of it. And as I also said the last time, not very many pianists play this fortissimo as is written. And the few times I hit the right notes, I can do it sometimes. I can really hear that this corresponds to a guy we once had in Denmark in an amusement park, where he was standing in front of some kind of circus and calling the audience in, trying to allure them, no, it's not called that, to make them enter and pay their ticket. And they had there was a lot of things this circus wanted to show to the people. And this is the same with Schumann here. The Carnival is a box with all kinds of strange and fascinating and varied portraits and expressions and situations and people, and what Schumann saw in the world around him around him and put into music, like in his composition Papillon and Fasching aus Wien also, and in some of the other compositions where he had a lot of different views of the world and people and facial expressions and persons and rituals and things. So I try to play this fortissimo if possible. So this means, hey, come over here, come over, look at this, look at this. Once more. Something like that. About the fortissimos and the change in forte, piano, fortissimo, I discovered something which I thought that was quite interesting. I played a couple of times the Bach prelude in C. And I can play a few bars the way I usually play it. But then suddenly I thought, well, isn't there an echo somehow here? I think it would be too much if you played it on two manuals on a cembalo like this. But if you just suggest this difference a little bit, then suddenly it's a completely different prelude. This is just an experiment. I don't know if it should be played like that, but suddenly it made sense. last time I played the Chopin F major ballad, I felt that the slow beginning had much more to say than I had discovered up till now. And this means also that the presto con fuoco passages have revealed some new kind of energy. I can still not play these passages, but they're getting better. And before I play some of this Chopin F major ballad, I feel tempted to just hint at this Rachmaninoff prelude also, which I play. And now it's very, very clear that something is happening. It's getting less difficult for me to play it, and there's some kind of transition period where I start to listen to how beautiful the prelude is, and then I'm somehow forgetting that I'm actually playing. So I have to pass that. So well, let's hear. Once more. You can see I'm carried away, but I think I'll try it just once more. Well, it doesn't get any better than that, but something is really cooking. I'm sure you can hear that. And as I said before, I can't do anything about that. I can't practice. If I practice, it disappears overnight. What I can do is watching, and I can see and hear that it's changing. It's coming like this flower garden, and I can only hope that this will continue until I can actually play it. And then some pieces of the F major ballad. somehow the same goes for the A flat ballad, which also, let's say, shows me how it wants to be played. I know this sounds preposterous, but maybe not. It's like well, DNA or some kind of what's it called, formula, which is there, algorithm or anything which well, to my experience, nobody has until yet discovered. There's a lot of wonderful musicians who play in a wonderful way, but what if I am on the track of something that's there's hidden messages in the music, but you have to be able to listen in a special way without any kind of disturbance, and you have to be able to play without practice, because practice contains some kind of routine, and you cannot play this really if you are unconscious just a little bit. So every note has to be conscious, and as I said, I cannot do that. I can't decide to do that, but as it is, as if this is what is happening. enough of that. There's a few other sounds I would like to illustrate. I've played this a number of times, but I'm getting closer and closer to the rain on the window in Gaspard de la Nuit, and I will not and cannot go any further in this composition until I can play this, because if you can play this beginning of Gaspard de la Nuit, you can play it. Normally it's played like an intriguing rhythm. But in the poem, it's rain on the window, and out of this rain there is an image, and the sound of this mermaid coming out there should be exotic, erotic, alluring, tempting. Let me try this rain. One more time. Maybe you can hear what I'm aiming at. And if I practiced 9 hours a day for a week, I will probably be able already now to play the Fifth Sonata by Alexander Scriabin. But I'm sticking with these chords in the beginning of the fast section, which due to their 2/3 rhythm also has this you can be tempted to play it as jazz-like, like this. But as I hear it, when I try to listen to the sound, it's like Scriabin invites you into an enchanted garden, which is different. Something like that. Well, to sum this up, the Liszt Sonata, and this is such a pleasure to be able to play these sounds in this masterpiece. In the beginning of the 19th century, it was considered a hump or an elephant nobody dared to touch, really, but now everybody plays it. And I'm trying to detect where am I in my ability to play. So playing this is revealing for a lot of things about sound. Before the Liszt Sonata, or just speaking of Scriabin, the Etude Opus 8 number 5, which I also have played, can sometimes be a study in the shifting of hands and big chords, so that the sound might be a little, what should we call it, brutal or ruthless, or like played like a study like this. But listening to the sound, this is a very, very friendly piece, almost as if it's about friendship and stretching out a hand to a friend. Well, these images in music is just a way to illustrate some kind of atmosphere, but I can try to play it the way I hear it now. Once more. Well, and now to these bits and pieces of the Liszt sonata, and again there will be blood or wrong notes, but never mind, listen to the sound. It's so much changing now, and I will be able to play it, and I enjoy that. So yes, here we go. Darn. this won't work today. Well, it almost works, as I said before. When I get absorbed in how wonderful the music is, I forget that I'm actually playing it. So I tune my ears as if I was listening to some other pianist. And of course, then it's a mess. But I think I may have illustrated the point this time and made something clearer. This is not a method. This is not something I have decided to do. I am watching like a child watching events unfold. What is happening to me, it appears that I'm getting my abilities to play the piano back. And for this I am really, really grateful. Thank you for listening.